Will Quentin Tarantino never make his 10th and allegedly final film? And if he doesn't, will we have famed magicians, skeptics, and entertainers Penn and Teller to partly blame? It might seem a stretch, but consider this. Tarantino's self-imposed 10-movie limit, which has left him seemingly unsure how to best follow up his critically acclaimed 9th film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, with one last movie, is based on his oft-expressed notion that too many great filmmakers continue directing too long after they should have wrapped up, ruining their filmographies with increasingly lackluster entries, and often closing out their careers with an embarrassing final film. One of the films Tarantino has pointed to as evidence of this is the final film of Bonnie and Clyde, Little Big Man, and Night Moves director Arthur Penn. If Penn had followed Tarantino's 10-movie maxim, his final film would have been the Jack Nicholson, Marlon Brando western The Missouri Breaks, which was a critical and commercial flop on its release, but has since been critically reevaluated and defended in subsequent years. Instead, though, Penn's final film, much to Tarantino's dismay, was the 1989 oddity Penn and Teller Get Killed, the lone starring feature for the popular duo that, despite their continued fame and pop culture relevance, is still largely forgotten about or just purely unknown to many fans today. It's certainly true that, even though the film's title and delivered ending suggest the movie was not necessarily trying to start a cinematic Penn and Teller franchise, the critical and financial failure of the movie ensured the duo never again headlined another movie. So why did a director as well regarded as Arthur Penn even want to make the movie in the first place? Well, one must remember what a media sensation Penn and Teller were in the late 80s. The duo consists of Penn Jillette, a verbose orator, and Teller, who remains entirely silent during the act, communicating through mime and nonverbal expressions. Throughout the early 80s, they made a name for themselves with an off-Broadway act which saw them perform magic tricks and then deconstruct the tricks to the audience, which was considered a big no-no for much of the magic community, and thus made Penn and Teller stand out as anarchic rule breakers. By 1985, they had their own PBS special. By 1987, they were starting a series of popular Broadway runs and had become frequent beloved guests on David Letterman and Jay Leno's late-night shows, as well as Saturday Night Live. So it's not surprising Hollywood tried to get in on the Penn and Teller, well, magic, with the film in which the duo, playing themselves, are targeted for death by various assassins after offhandedly joking on TV that they wish someone would try to kill them. Though the movie was a bomb, it didn't slow the duo down, as they remained a popular live act with a perennial Vegas show, and they became frequent TV guest stars throughout the 90s. In 2003, they started a popular Showtime series, Penn and Teller Bullshit, which took a skeptical look at religion, the paranormal, and conspiracy theories. And in 2011, they began the still-running competitive magic game show, Penn and Teller Fool Us. Still, one wonders about an alternate timeline where Penn and Teller Get Killed was a hit, where Tarantino didn't have to complain about it ruining the legacy of its director, where the duo went on to star in a series of Penn and Teller movies, and where perhaps then they would not have had the time to make a cameo in another little-remembered film of the era, one with a production timeline so complicated not even its own director knew it had been released at all. The year is 1994, and Orion Pictures are ready to finally release a long-on-the-shelf adaptation of a beloved early 60s sitcom, and in the process hopefully launch the next big cinematic comedy franchise with Car 54, Where Are You?
Welcome once again to Failure to Franchise, the show dedicated to some of Hollywood's most infamous mistakes, missteps, and misfires. This is Trev.
F2F Pod, where are you? And I'm Chris.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. You didn't want to come in with the ooh, ooh, ooh. You didn't want to do that?
I was going to try to do a David Johansen impression, but I do have to pod for the next 90 minutes. So
yeah, it's rough.
Yeah.
One of my favorite, I think a sign of good acting is when you feel like it hurts the actor to give every line delivery. Mm-hmm. That's what I think.
The co-stars.
Yeah, and the audience, but maybe. So we'll see. So this is our second installment in Summer Surprise, where we allow a online randomizer to pick our movies. And I know this one was a little bit of a shock to you because this is one that I'd recently added to our list, and you were just kind of overall confused. And I'm sure that confusion just washed away once you watched the movie. So, but we're not. I just want to hint at something right now because I just want to say before I say what the movie is. is that we're not alone for this episode. We have a guest. We'll introduce him in a moment. But what's fascinating is this is a 3-country podcast. We have podcasters from 3 different countries. This is a United Nations of movie podcasting. And I
Means we're totally useless?
Yeah, and I can't think of a better movie and a more fitting movie to bring together 3 nations to talk about than 1994's or 1990 or 1991. I don't know. We'll talk about it. But officially, 1994's Car 54, Where Are You? So before, Chris, I know you like to give your little spiel about the movie, but first, why don't we bring in our guest? And there's a very particular reason we have this guest. So if you don't mind, Chris, I will introduce him since he is a guest I brought to the show. And this is the co-host of one of my other podcasts, Bede Trev versus the Big Apple, in which me and my buddy Bede look at New York movies from the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. And so here's my co-host, Bede Jermyn, a.k.a. the Terrible Aussie. Bede, thank you for joining us.
G'day, guys. I'm very excited to be here on Failure to Franchise. And now I'm on your show, Trev. So, because I mean, you've been on, well, I mean, you and I host a show together. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you and I host a show together, but I also host a whole bunch of podcasts that you have guested on as well. Yeah. So I think it was about time that I guested on one of your shows.
Yeah, the backstory here is I found Bede through, he started a great podcast. I think it's come up on this show before, and if not, Chris just knows this already. My favorite movie of all time is Night of the Living Dead, the original 1968 film. And Bede hosts a show called Bede versus the Living Dead. Bede, do you want to just quickly explain what that show is?
Well, essentially the whole premise behind Bede versus the Living Dead is, like you said, Trev, it is centered around everything that's connected to Night of the Living Dead, not just with the film itself, but its many remakes, re-edits, homages, spoofs, unofficial follow-ups, official follow-ups, and I sort of cover everything, not just in terms of films, but also in other forms of media as well. So I've covered comic books, I've covered music, I've covered episodes of TV shows and novels. So it's been an interesting ride covering everything with that film in many different forms of media. And the fact that, at least at the time of this recording, I'm coming up to my 85th episode kind of tells you everything you need to know on how much media there is just centered on Night of the Living Dead alone.
Yeah, well, a movie that fell into the public domain, so obviously that helps your show quite a bit, right? Because everyone can do whatever they want with it. So because I love that movie, I found that podcast and I reached out to Bede because at the time I was writing an article about some of George Romero's comic books that are set in the world of Night of the Living Dead. And I asked him if he was going to ever cover those, and if he did, would he want to use my article as reference material? And we just started chatting back and forth, and then it ended up leading to me coming on as a guest for some comic-related episodes. Then I just kind of kept guesting, and then I guested on some of his other shows because he has some spin-offs where he was also doing like Bede and Steve versus Camp Crystal Lake, where him and his buddy Steve looking at all the Jason films. Then I went on the Leatherface one, and finally I just said, Bede, you and I've been guesting on our shows. We should do something. And then this is all leading to this episode today. We eventually settled on the idea I came up with was, you know what? I love New York movies. I just am obsessed with movies that take place and especially were filmed in New York from the 70s and 80s and then a little bit into the early 90s when New York was still like really grimy, the pre-Giuliani cleanup. And so I said, why don't we do a podcast entirely about that? And so earlier this year, we started Bede Trev versus the Big Apple, a monthly podcast where we look at different movies set or filmed in New York from that time period in different genres. And so, because when the online randomizer gave us Car 54, Where Are You?, Bede immediately popped into my head because this is a New York movie of the early 90s. And it's one that, Bede, correct me if I'm wrong, I doubt we would have ever gotten to on our show. Maybe season 48 or something. I don't think this was high up on either of our lists.
I would have been surprised if it would have been on our lists at some point, but I think you're absolutely right. This would have been much later on in the series, especially if we're trying very hard to find films for the comedic section of our show. Yeah. So who knows, Trevor? Even though we're talking about on this show, we may have to talk about it again on our show at some point if it ever
here's my promise.
Run out of comedies.
Here's my promise. If we ever do that, we will bring Chris back because I know he wants to watch this again. So
Definitely.
Again, thanks, Bede, for being here, and Trev, being the polyamorous podcaster that you are, has brought him into my life. I'm like the cuck chair of our pod right now. So I'm in the corner, having a good time. Okay, Car 54. Where are you? Directed by Bill Fishman. He is more of a music video guy. Has over 50 credits to his name. He actually went from this movie back to music videos. This was his last feature, but he's done
for a while.
Yeah. But he was doing videos for the Ramones, Suicidal Tendencies, Good Charlotte, Lamb of God, Nickelback, The Offspring, Backstreet Boys, Jessica Simpson, Trev's favorite. So he has a lot.
Nickelback and Jessica Simpson, all my favorites.
Versatile. But yes, so he's a music video guy. This is written by 4 people. Okay, so I want everybody to remember that when we get to the review. 4 people wrote this movie. Eric Tarloff, he's more of a TV guy. He wrote for The Jeffersons, Bob Newhart, All in the Family, MASH. And the other writer, Ebby Rowe Smith, they wrote the Michael Douglas movie Falling Down, but mostly they're an actor.
Yeah.
Peter McCarthy, he wrote Bill Fishman's earlier movie Tapeheads, which actually is the reason Bill Fishman got this movie.
Yeah, big cult hit of the time.
Yeah. And then Peter Crabb, McHale's Navy rung a bell for me, but I'm not really familiar with his work per se.
Well, McHale's Navy was another like old sitcom.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And the reason why there's a lot of TV guys in the mix here is, well, this is based on a 60-episode TV show that ran from 1961 to 1963, 2 seasons, created by Nat Hicken.
There's a holdup in the Bronx, Brooklyn's broken out in fights. There's a traffic jam in Harlem that's backed up to Jackson Heights. There's a scout troop short a child, cruise ships do and idle wild. Car 54, where are you?
The budget for Car 54, Where Are You? Is $10.7 million. Worldwide, a staggering $1.2 million, Trev.
Well, and I can tell you right now, I alluded to this in our last episode, so again, this isn't giving away anything about how I feel about the movie, but at least a little bit of that 1.2 million was my family who went and saw this movie in the theater. Now, to clarify that is because, I think I've talked about this before, my dad was a huge movie buff. That's where I got it from. And we had a theater right down the road from our house, and just basically like every Friday or Saturday, we went and saw whatever the new movie was. So I saw just like pretty much everything when I was like younger, and was just my dad would just drag us all to the movies no matter what was out. And I also think it's true, and we can segue right into like why this movie happened, because you talked about all these TV people being involved and it being based on a sitcom. I do want to ask you guys a question in a second, but I think it's probably a safe bet that my dad, growing up when he did, was probably a fan of the original show, right? So I want to turn that to you guys, and just before I get into the point of like, well, why a movie based on this show even happened this time. But Chris, I know you were like, when this one came up in the randomizer, you were just like, what? You were like so confused. But I guess you hadn't heard of this movie. Had you ever even heard of this show before this?
No, not even a little bit.
The name Car 54, Where Are You meant nothing to you.
Nothing. And, I've said in this podcast a few times, especially when we did like, we've done a few movie adaptations of old TV shows at this point, like Charlie's Angels, Lost in Space, Baywatch. What else? We've done a bunch more. What was the
Land of the Lost.
Land of the Lost we did. Yeah.
Yeah, Mod Squad. Yeah.
So I'm like familiar with a lot of old TV shows purely because there was a channel here in Canada when I was growing up. Oh my God, I'm trying to remember what it was called. But it was I used to wake up early in the morning before going to elementary school, and I'd watch, like Happy Days or All in the Family, Lost in Space, of course. Loved Three's Company. That was a huge one. So like I'm very familiar with a lot. Oh, I Love Lucy was a big one I really loved. The Honeymooners. But like, I am familiar with a lot of this old stuff, but this one totally escaped me. So much so, like my mother-in-law listens to the podcast, and she was just over a couple days ago, and I was watching the movie, by the way, and she was like, well, yeah, she used to watch the old TV show. She actually saw this movie before I even brought it up to her, so I was pretty surprised by that. But yes, this is an IP that has completely escaped me, and mostly just because of my age, I guess, but I don't think it caught on huge up here in Canada as much as those other ones I listed.
Well, that's Bede, same question. Was there any, like, did you have any cultural awareness of this? Had you heard of the movie, or specifically had you heard of this show? Like, did Car 54, Where Are You, make it over to Australia in any way?
Well, I'm not exactly sure if it was released in cinemas in Australia, but in terms of my awareness of this film and also the TV show, I was aware of the movie, mainly due to its infamousy, and also it was nominated for a Razzie as well, so I was fully aware of that. But in terms of the TV show, I honestly did not know this was actually based on a TV show until you asked me to appear on the show and doing research on it. So I was very surprised by that, but at the same time, though, not really, mainly because around the late 80s and early 90s, pretty much like that was kind of the big trend in Hollywood at the time, was filmmakers going back to either the 60s or the 70s and making movie versions of popular TV shows. So, I mean, I shouldn't have been surprised at all that if they would want to do a movie version of this show. But in terms of my awareness of it, pretty much not existent. I mean, we had a lot of cable channels here growing up that would show a lot of these classic shows from that period, but I don't remember if I ever saw the show on any of them, especially like when I think back on that particular time in my life.
Yeah, I mean, you just alluded to something I wanted to hit on for this opening, because we don't have like a lot of production stuff for this movie to talk about. Surprise, surprise. You know, there hasn't been a lot of like retrospective documentaries on Car 54, Where Are You, or anything. But I do think it's interesting that we've talked about this before, Chris, because you mentioned some of the other movies we looked at. But this one's an even better opportunity to discuss how there was like a period there, especially in the 90s, where these were like the superhero movies of the time almost, and how much theaters were just like inundated with this. You mentioned some of them, right? So like let's even start with like the non-comedy ones. 1993 of The Fugitive, like we said, the Mod Squad 99, Mission Impossible, of course, in 96, The Avengers, which we looked at in 98, Lost in Space in 98, Wild Wild West in 99. But then there was like this real run of where they were just going back and plucking old classic sitcoms. So we have 1991, obviously, The Addams Family. I don't have these necessarily all chronologically, but 1993 is a great year for this. You get Dennis the Menace, you get Addams Family Values, the sequel, you get Beverly Hillbillies. Let's see. Then you got 1995. You have the Brady Bunch movie, one of the bigger hits there. 1996, you get the Very Brady sequel, and also Sergeant Bilko. I would throw in Flintstones from '94 there.
Yep.
1997, you have a Leave It to Beaver movie, and McHale's Navy, the aforementioned. They did do a movie of that. You get, and then My Favorite Martian in 99. So, I mean, they were just like, they were plucking any kind of sitcom IP they could, probably for a couple reasons. One of them being, of course, as Bede just alluded to, all the people who grew up on those shows were now like of the age of being movie executives, right? And so they're like, well, I loved that show as a kid. I guess let's see what's going on with that. But also, the reason they thought they could get away with this, and this is something I also like to talk about often, is because I feel like I'm one of the last generations of this, is that you did have a younger generation who was way more in tune with like older TV than younger generations today are. Because I'm like the last like pure like kind of pre-internet generation, and obviously pre-streaming, and really like pretty early days home video. So when we were kids, we were all really slaves to like what was just on TV. That's what we watched all the time, and that's why there's like certain movies that are just so beloved. Certain 80s movies were just rerun on cable all the time, but also like a lot of the syndicated TV we watched was still reruns of like old shows. So like my generation grew up, and like even though it was before our time, we were still like we all knew Leave It to Beaver, we all knew the Brady Bunch, we all knew Green Acres, we all knew Happy Days, and all these like older shows, and especially because of Nick at Night. Now, to what you just said though, Chris, I think the thing about Car 54 is I looked at it. It was on Nick at Night, but it had a really brief run on Nick at Night. It only was like on Nick at Night for like 3 years, and then it started like moving over into like smaller cable channels in America. So I don't think it ever quite had like it didn't take off with like a younger generation the same way some of those other old sitcoms did. But there was definitely an awareness of it, and I definitely remember being aware of it even before this movie came out when I was younger because of that.
Also, only 2 seasons. And
Only
I
two
think
seasons,
maybe that hurt it too. I remember the channel, by the way. It was called Deja Vu.
Oh, that's good.
That's good.
That's
Right?
good,
That's gold, baby. Yeah.
Yeah, only 2 seasons. I think if it had like lasting cultural awareness, because it's simply because of a couple of the people in it, like the 2 leads. We should just say, well, we can quickly get this out of the way. Car 54, Where Are You? The sitcom and the movie are about 2 mismatched New York City police officers, Gunther Tootie and Francis Muldoon. And in the sitcom, Gunther Tootie, who is kind of the more like kind of dumb, eager but not super bright, like loud, obnoxious cop. He was played by a comedian at the time named Joey Ross, who his kind of catchphrase was going, ooh, ooh, ooh. That was like his whole thing. And then the straight-buttoned, more reserved cop.
What a simpler time, by the way. Sorry. What a simpler time.
Yeah, I know.
What was his thing? Ooh, ooh, ooh. Wow, it's, okay. Anyways, go on.
Yeah. But his like more reserved partner, Francis Muldoon, was played by Fred Gwynne, who of course went on to way more fame as Herman Munster, like later on, right? And then just people love Fred Gwynne from other things later, like even like Pet Sematary and My Cousin Vinny. But then continuing the Munsters connection, Al Lewis, who played Grandpa in the Munsters, was also a supporting character in Car 54, Where Are You? So I think if people love the Munsters, there would also be this thing where, well, did you know Fred Gwynne and Al Lewis already had another show before that where they were cops? So that probably played a little bit into it.
Right.
But I don't know, it's just so weird. That whole thing was like such a weird American phenomenon. Did this happen in Canada and Australia? Did you guys ever like make movies of your old shows? I don't know. I mean, I know there's not like a Red Green movie or anything, but it's like...
You son of a bitch. I was waiting for it. No, because Hollywood was just pumping them out. I know I think Bede can maybe speak to this too, but Australians and Canadians, we do have a similar. I think we've always got along, culturally and our taste as well. So I think there's a lot of Canadian like soap operas, and I know there's a lot of Australian soaps and like daytime like teen soap opera stuff. Like that's one thing that we were really focused on a lot, I think. What would you say to that, Bede?
Yeah, well, I mean, Australia and Canada are a part of the Commonwealth, so obviously we have that connection there. But yeah, sort of thinking about it now in terms of, it must have been just more of an American thing, just making movie versions of TV shows. I can only think of like maybe 2 instances where there was a film version of a TV show in Australia, but in both cases, one was more like a continuation of the TV show, and the other one was, well, The Wiggles. So, and that's kind of essentially it, really, at least that I can think of the top of my head. But I know there have been cases where some movies have had spin-off TV shows. Like Wolf Creek had a 2-season TV show after the release of the second film. But other than that, though, I think that's kind of like one of the only few rare cases. I mean, we've had popular shows here in Australia, like Skippy, the Bush Kangaroo. But even then, though, I'm kind of surprised that has not had a film version of it.
Yeah, and
sorry, I feel bad. You said Skippy the Bush Kangaroo, and I laughed, and I feel like I shouldn't have done that. That was probably
that was
cultural.
First of all, that was the most American thing you could do, so it makes sense. It's in your blood. You have to make fun of other cultures. I'm surprised you're not invading Bede's feed right now. I was thinking of Canadian TV shows made into movies here too. Trailer Park Boys, Corner Gas. Those two TV shows spawned films. But that was like later on. That wasn't like during the 80s or 90s. It was
the
now.
big example is for Canada, Chris, actually just popped in my head, is Strange Brew, which is an SCTV movie.
That's fair.
So,
yeah, that's a good one. Yep, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, like, you can kind of tell I'm just trying to like delay talking about Car 54, Where Are You? But like,
why? Why would you say that?
I don't know. Well, but just really quickly, one thing I wanted to ask you, because I don't really know this. I'm like I have like some familiarity with like old Australian movies because obviously I got into exploitation and stuff. But I'm not as familiar with like Australian TV. Are like sitcoms like even is that a TV format that kind of blew up in Australia? Did you guys have like was like this the kind of single camera laugh track sitcom? Is that something that was kind of made in Australia a lot or no?
Oh yeah, like mainly in the 80s and 90s, we did have that sort of traditional multi-camera laugh track sitcom. Probably the ones that, and this is going to show both my age and going to be so obscure for non-Australian listeners. Like some of the ones that I can think of off the top of my head, a show called Kingswood Country, which is basically, I would say, an Australian version of All in the Family. So it's kind of very similar to that one. Then we had another show that called Acropolis Now, which was a show made by some very famous Australian Greek comedians here in Australia. And then there was another one called Hey Dad, which was hugely popular for a number of years, but you can't watch that show anymore, mainly because, let's just say the lead actor of that basically did some things that were almost on the level of Bill Cosby in Australia. So that you can't even get that show anymore. But yeah, we had quite a number of sitcoms like that, but they kind of died out by the time the 2000s came around because they were just mostly huge in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious.
Did you want to talk a little bit about? I mean, you were kind of joking around, Trev, that you didn't know when this movie came out.
Well, I knew when it came out because I was there. But
no. But I guess what I mean is like, technically, there was like about a 4-year period where it should have come out. So
yeah, I would actually say I knew more about when it came out than Bill Fishman, the director, did. So
yes, because maybe we should pivot and talk a little bit about Orion Pictures now that we're kind of waxing poetic about older stuff. Orion Pictures made this film. And Trev made a joke just now, but Bill Fishman, yes, it was delayed for 4 years, and he actually didn't even know this movie was released until he was forwarded a check for his royalties. Which,
by the way, I'm surprised he even got royalties. Like what?
Hey, sometimes those royalty checks are like 30 cents and like a ham sandwich, as you would say.
Yeah.
But so much so that he actually didn't even know about the extensive re-edits and reshoots and blah, blah, blah. But he wanted to be credited as Alan Smithy, which is kind of the pseudonym that writers want if they want their names to be taken off of a project. Directors, sorry.
Yeah.
And I know that because I used to work in a movie theater, as I've said many times in this podcast. I used to work for Cineplex Odeon back when I was like 15, 16 years old. And there was a coffee shop area because there was like, the hot food. It was called Outtakes. Then there was like, of course, concession. But then there was a coffee shop that was called Alan Smithy's. So clever. And also, I can don't poo-poo.
No. I was going to say, because I think the reason I know that is like one of the more fascinating things to ever happen in Hollywood is, as you just said, like I don't think it's used anymore, but Alan Smithy was the official Directors Guild name that we put on a movie when a director wanted his name taken off. And then like in the late 90s, Hollywood made a movie about that called Burn Hollywood Burn, an Alan Smithy film. And that was directed by Arthur Hiller, but he ended up having that movie kind of taken away from him in the edit. And like, even though that wasn't planned, he literally took his name off of it. And so the movie was credited to Alan Smithy, even though that was not the intention. And that's just always been hilarious to me that happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about why Orion Pictures. Well, first of all, what was Orion Pictures at the time, but then also why this movie was delayed so heavily. Orion Pictures, founded in 1978. It made films up to 1999. Let's just say it went bankrupt. They tried to sell it numerous times to Paramount or to Sony. They actually, you had mentioned the Addams Family already, but they actually had to sell off some of their projects because they needed the cash flow. Orion, they're known for RoboCop, Terminator, Caddyshack. Hell, they won 4 Best Picture awards, or four Best Picture awards at the Academy Awards. Amadeus, Platoon, Silence of the Lambs, and Dances with Wolves, which is basically just Avatar with Indians. But you know,
I know. Yeah, and we're brave enough to say it.
Yeah, you're on this podcast. But Orion became like a huge joke in the early 90s because of their issues. 2 times Billy Crystal was hosting Academy Awards, and he would rip on them saying that, you know, the studio's in a coma, or you know, they were just purchased but bought by the House of Representatives. So like this studio was in dire straits in the 90s, and that's kind of what led to delays of RoboCop 3, which also sucks. I don't want to say also. That's not what I mean. I'm not trying to say anything about Car 54, but Car 54 was delayed, like RoboCop 3, and then in 1997 was acquired by MGM, which then later was acquired by Amazon in 2022. So the rights for Car 54, if anybody's wondering after this discussion, Amazon, baby. So if you want, you know, more, write your congressman or whatever, you know.
Hit them up. Yeah. They got the cash. They can bring this back.
So
I do like to picture the like young Orion executive who, like, as Orion was like heading into like financial trouble, he was like, guys, I got the project that will turn things around. It's Car 54. Where are you? Trust me. I saw the show when I was a kid. It's a guy goes, ooh, it'll be great. Yeah. And then they're like, and that's the thing. It's like, we just talked about, like, the 90s was like full of these like sitcom movies, but it is weird that they just kept pumping them out because not many of them were huge hits. You know, of that entire list I said, only Addams Family and Brady Bunch were like successful enough to get sequels.
Flintstones.
There was others in there that did okay, but like I don't know. It's just strange they like kept pumping them out. But and then it's really strange that like they would have chose this one. And then we'll talk about like the kind of way they approached it, you know, and compared to that. But that kind of comes back to what you were saying about Bill Fishman's confusion about it, because he made the movie a particular way. I mean, let's just say, we don't need to say this for the review. He filmed this as a musical. They decided, even though the sitcom wasn't a musical, they filmed it as a musical. And then Orion like starts to go bankrupt. The movie's supposed to come out in like late 90 or 91. I couldn't really get an exact date on that, but it just doesn't come out. And then Bill Fishman just kind of assumes it's like never coming out. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't realize instead in that time that like the studio's just taking it and they're editing it to hell, and they like cut out all but 2 of the musical numbers and make it not a musical. So by the time it comes out, as you just said, it's so not the movie he or the cast thought they were making anyways. Just, you know, I know we've done a lot of weird ones on this show, but this is like up there in terms of like weird stories about like the movie's kind of background, and the fact that, like you said, it comes out 4 years after it's intended to. The director doesn't know it's out. You know, it's like it's a re-edited movie. Just what a bizarre, you know, circumstance.
Yeah. I think we need to talk in depth. As best we can about Car 54. So let's get to it on the other side of this.
Car 54, where are you?
Not running away from my duty. I'm running away from you. Wherever you go, there's gas to follow.
Oh, my God!
2 men on a mission. Officer Tudyk, Officer Muldoon.
We have the lowest reported crime rate in the whole city. Of course you do. You don't report any of it.
They can outrun any killer.
They're getting away.
They can protect any witness.
There's no time for a nap. Come on, get up. We gotta get out of here.
And what they lack in good instinct.
Hey, help! Police, help!
Right there.
They make up for with good intentions.
You've got a big booger right here.
From the people who didn't bring you lethal weapons comes a story so daring.
Yeah, you want even bigger? We got bigger. Here it is, the M60. You can do forestry with this Rambo, baby.
A story so romantic.
I brought you some flowers.
What more could a man ask for?
A story so powerful. You'd better bring protection.
Does anybody have a mailbox?
David Johansen, John McGinley, Fran Drescher, Nipsey Russell, Rosie O'Donnell, Daniel Baldwin, Jeremy Piven, Tone Loc, the Ramones, and Al Lewis. Car 54, where are you?
What's wrong?
cop groupies.
Cop groupies?
Yes, cop groupies today on Geraldo. I saw the whole thing.
Brash New York City policeman, Officer Gunther Tootie, is partnered with stiff, by-the-book Officer Francis Muldoon to protect an important mafia witness prior to testifying against organized crime in Brooklyn. All the while dealing with dating, an overbearing spouse, common criminals, arm dealers, and their demanding Captain Anderson.
Car 54, Where Are You? A movie that, again, just a reminder, because I don't think I can say enough, a young Trevor Snyder sat in the theater and saw. but Bede, you're our man of the hour. I want to hear from you first. You know, as I said, you and I, we've been hosting our show about New York movies. We've already looked at some of the classics of New York cinema. Panic in Needle Park, Another Woman, The Landlord. I want to know, where does this fall into like the classic New York movies for you? And just what did you think on your first viewing and your introduction to Car 54? Where Are You? And like, I'll just preface this before Bede says, Bede, I know you're a wild man. Your opinions don't always go with like the rest of the world. So I really don't know what's about to happen. Bede, what did you think of this movie?
I'll say this, Trev. It's not the worst New York film I've ever seen, but it's still pretty low down there. I mean, where to start with my thoughts on Car 54, Where Are You? Well, that's the thing. I kind of knew what to expect going into it, because like I said earlier in the episode, I already knew of its reputation, or infamous reputation. Mm-hmm. I've seen a lot of people say that it's one of the worst films of 1994. I know it appeared on a few worst of lists. So I pretty much had an idea what to expect when I went into it. And sometimes though, and Trev, you know this about me, like whenever I hear a film is regarded as like one of the worst things ever made, I'm probably even more excited for it, just as if I hear a film is one of the best films ever made. Mm-hmm. And I will say though, watching this film, I was slightly disappointed it wasn't as awful as I hoped it would be. But as a comedy, it's pretty meh, I would say. It's pretty inoffensive. A lot of the jokes don't land. I mean, you could tell, like, the cast are trying, and you could clearly see where the film was heavily edited. Like, knowing that this film was originally meant to be a musical doesn't surprise me at all, because essentially, like, the movie does begin with a musical number, and then another one pops up later on in the film. When it comes to comedy, I go by my friend Sam's rules when it comes to comedy. If it at least makes me chuckle at least 5 times, then it's successful as a comedy. I think I may have only chuckled maybe 2 or 3 times throughout the whole film. But even then, though, those were very mild chuckles. Although there was one gag in the film that legit made me laugh, and it just reminded me it was as something out of a Zucker Brothers film. But I'll get to that a little bit later. But yeah, not the worst film I've ever seen, or even the worst comedy I ever seen. But yeah, it's still pretty abysmal.
You went from meh, laughed a couple times, not the worst thing, and abysmal.
I see. This is the thing, Chris. You just never know what I'm gonna say, and then I say all this, and then you go to my Letterboxd, and it's just 2 stars on Letterboxd.
That's great. That's great.
Car 54, where are you?
Trev, I actually want to hear from you next, because not only because you both co-host your other podcast, but also because I need to know what you thought as a young person when you saw this, and then what you thought today, and then I will give my thoughts. So Trev, I really need to hear from you.
Well, so we've talked before about how when you're younger, you're just stupider, right? And you're kind of like, there's a period of your life where every movie you go see, you're like, well, that was good because it was a movie. Like, that's all it takes, you know? But I will say that I saw this, so I looked at the release date, and this came out in January of 1994 to American theaters, which means I saw it. I was 13. I was past that point. I remember not liking this when I was 13.
Okay, yeah,
this was one where, like I said, we would just go see everything. I don't think I was probably aware that this movie was coming out, but we would sometimes just go see movies, like because there was there's a period where just like studios were just throwing all kinds of shit in the theaters. And we would go see sometimes multiple movies even over the weekend. And we would just go see movies that I'd never heard of. My dad would be like, let's go see this, like whatever's playing. And we'd check it out. And so maybe this is something I was aware of, or maybe we just walked in and was like, oh my God, I didn't even know they made a movie of this. But I remember I don't remember having any excitement to see this. And then I do remember it's that kind of thing where even when you're young, you're watching a movie and you're kind of feeling embarrassed that you're in the theater watching it. that's what I kind of remember about this. And I've never revisited it since. So that's to answer your question. Like that's like even at 13, I was like, oh no, that was a stinker. And I think, and the nice thing about my dad was like, he would acknowledge that too. Like he'd take us to movies, but like he just liked seeing stuff. Mm-hmm. And if a movie was bad, we had a good time like joking about it afterwards. And I think we all kind of walked out of this one being like, whew, boy, that was like, what was that? And like, and obviously that reputation quickly coalesced around this film. Like Bede, there was a part of me that like when I revisited it, and Chris, I'm guilty of this too, where I was thinking like, boy, I remember it being so bad and it's got this horrible reputation. Maybe I'm going to kind of get something out of it, an ironic level. And I'll say like, if there's any enjoyment to be had, that's probably the closest you can get here, because this is a truly dreadful comedy. Like I agree with Bede. I'll try to. We like to give movies grace sometimes on here, Chris, and so I will do that and say, I think every actor is actually giving it their all in this. There's at least one actor who's actually giving it too much. We'll talk about that. So he's giving a performance where he knew, like, I was like, really wish he had dialed it down. But and probably not, maybe not the one you're thinking. But every actor is giving it their all. I like a lot of this cast. There's a movie populated with people I like. Like Bede, I have a list of the jokes that made me laugh. I only got to 4, so I wouldn't. Sam's rule wouldn't get me. There are 4 jokes I like in the movie. But yeah, the ultimate thing I want to say to wrap up my thoughts here, I said it's terrible, but this goes back to a conversation we had a long time ago, Chris, too, and I think we looked at like Land of the Lost, and where you watch a movie and you wonder, who is this made for? Because, Chris, this is probably not going to surprise you, but for this episode, I sat down and watched the pilot episode of Car 54.
Yes.
Where are
yes.
you?
I was waiting. I was going to ask you earlier, but I'm like, he better say it when he gives his thoughts.
Yeah. No, I did. I sat down and watched the pilot. And it was like fine, it's an old sitcom, not like a lot of sitcoms, they don't age amazingly well in terms of the humor. Mm-hmm. Not my necessarily sense of humor. If I'm going to watch a Fred Gwynne, Al Lewis show, I'm obviously going to choose the Munsters. But it was like whatever. It was very telling of the time. The entire pilot, the entire joke of the entire first episode, is just based around Tootie and Muldoon wanting to get a day off so they can go swordfish fishing. And so it's like the entire episode is about how they have to keep trying to get their schedule switched, and it creates havoc on the schedule of the department because they have to move around all these shifts. That's it. That's the entire half hour. And I watched that one episode. Obviously you had the famous theme song and everything, which was like a big part of the show. And so I was like, oh, the theme song. And then watch the show. I'm like, okay, yeah, there's a couple like slight jokes here or whatever, but it's just like largely inoffensive, right? It's just a standard 60s sitcom. And then I watched this movie that's like scored like heavily with like 90s hip hop, is like really crude and kind of crass in its humor. And it's just like, okay, so what are you doing? Because it seems like you're trying to push the movie and its sense of humor towards younger viewers who don't give a shit about Car 54, are you? And you're just alienating the old people who would come to the theater who are actually excited to see Car 54, Where Are You? So it's just like a total like misfire of what this movie could have been and should have been. And that's even saying like, I don't even know that a movie based on this property ever would have been a big deal, but I don't know why they took that show and made this movie. This is a truly baffling film.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Car 54, where are you?
Bede, have you seen The Odyssey yet?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Okay. This was the next movie I watched after The Odyssey.
By the way, me too. Same day
Yes.
for me.
Yeah, and let's just say the whiplash was so bad, Bede, that I became the little girl from Hereditary.
I was going to say, I thought this movie was also its own Odyssey as well.
Yeah, some may say for sure. I also, Trev knows this, but I also have a lot of environmental allergies. Something I've dealt with my whole life. I did allergy shots, to keep them at bay, so I can have a dog and live a nice life that I don't have to worry about my congestion all the time. Well, anyway, I have a new allergy, and his name is David Johansen. So there's that too. And honestly, thank God we have a guest on this episode. I texted that to Trev when I watched this movie, because I don't know how much I'm gonna have to say about this one. Trev knows. I mean, he knows me really well, and this was aggravating. I was so irritated. This is a flat line of a movie with only a series of valleys and no peaks. Like, that's just all this is. I didn't think it was spoof enough, or slapstick enough, or goofy enough, or even straight comedy enough, and especially not musical enough. It was just like exactly what Trev was saying. Like, who is this for? Mm-hmm. And again, we don't know the original cut. Who knows? Maybe there was 4 other amazing musical scenes, but here there's like 2 half musicals, one with an animated gangster bird that shows up for like a second. But I just felt like this was just such an incoherent movie and experience. 4 writers. I don't know, there's like 10 donut jokes. There's another 10 hot dog jokes because we're in New York. I just hated it. I just fucking hated it. This was excruciating to me. Daniel Baldwin is in this, doing his best Alec Baldwin impression. Like, that was weird. Yeah, I like John C. McGinley. I like him. He plays a good tight ass. He's a no nonsense cop. But he's got good comedic timing. I like him, but everyone else was just so irritating. Like, I didn't like any characters, and I think if you're having a goofy comedy like this, maybe I should have some likable characters, like the TV show that lasted 2 years that people liked and enjoyed. I just felt like everybody needed to be like off my screen as soon as humanly possible. Maybe except for Fran Drescher, because I like looking at her. She's still beautiful, and But
well, I was trying. You know what I was thinking, Chris? I was like looking at the timeline of this, and I was like thinking, like, what? So this movie, like, they filmed in 1990. They obviously knew they had a stinker on their hands, right? So like, I know, I understand Orion's financial troubles were part of it, why it didn't come out. But then you like wonder, like, while they're having financial troubles, why would they bother even trying to like save this? Like, why would they try to like recut it and put it out? And the only thing I could think was, I noticed that in between like its initial like intended release and it coming out to theaters, The Nanny started. So maybe they're like, oh shit, like now we have Fran Drescher in this. She's on the poster. She's like the third lead. We can throw this out. Like, that was the only thing that like made me think like maybe that's why they finally dusted it off and threw it out there.
And when does Flintstone comes out again? What year was that?
94.
Okay, so Rosie O'Donnell was in that movie too. So maybe they're trying to catch a wave.
And people, that's possible too, right? Incoherent's a great way to put it. What you just said is so true, Chris. Where you said it's not like everything was like, it's not funny enough, it's not musical enough, because it's you can see like all those things, like the potential of how this movie, if it had maybe chosen a lane, I don't know that it would have been good, but at least it would feel like a movie, right? Because there are times where, so you get Bill Fishman, who's a music video director. He's obviously known for this cult film Tapeheads that's about the music video industry. And I can see why he would want to make a musical comedy, obviously, Yeah. And I think what he was trying to lean into, and I think you're aware of this as well, we've watched movies like this, both for the show and just in, like, we've talked about other movies like this. There was a style of comedy in the 90s that parts of this movie are very indicative of, which is like very aggressive comedy, where everything is kind of aggressively weird and all the characters are aggressively big. And even like the production design is kind of aggressively loud. Like, there was a lot of that in the 90s. And there are moments where this movie leans into that, and you think like, the movie would probably be more successful if it consistently did that. Like Bede kind of said, there are a couple jokes that are kind of like Naked Gun, Zucker Brothers-esque, but it only occasionally does that. and it's so the movie has this like weird tonal imbalance throughout the entire thing. I understand that probably comes with like the studio recutting it and everything, but that's what was getting frustrating to me, where it's like, pick a lane, movie. Like, are you trying to be like a spoof? Are you trying to be just like a more standard comedy? Are you trying to be like a sex comedy? There's like a sex scene in this, like that doesn't need to be in a movie based on a Nick at Night sitcom, you know?
And it's aggressive and just like, it's just like, what?
Oh, I mean, not only like speaking aggressive, like one of the first lines spoken in the movie, again, thinking like, you picture all these like old people come into the theater to be like, oh, I watched Car 54, Where Are You? When I was a kid, and I'm so excited to see this. And like one of the very first things you hear is they go like, Car 54, where the fuck are you? And it's like, oh, all right. You know, it's like they're just trying to be like edgy. And that was like, yeah, and that feeds into what you said about all the characters being like annoying, because it's like, you can't have just likable, normal human beings in an edgy comedy, right? And so everybody's like over the top to the point where you're like, they don't feel like human beings, so you just don't care about them. Yeah, really, really frustrating.
Yeah. Catherine Hardwicke, production designer, Twilight fame, speaking of the Odyssey, Robert Pattinson.
Well, not just that, director of Tank Girl for us.
Yeah, director of Tank Girl. Mm-hmm. So yeah, good for her. She got paid, I guess, maybe.
Production design's not the problem here. You know, I'll say that.
No, it looked fine. It looked good. I felt like I was in New York, even though I was in Ontario. David Johansen.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I could see the 1960s sitcom over-the-top vision. You know what I mean? Like, I could see it. I could understand maybe what he's going for. However, dude, just so painful to just listen to. I'm sorry, I don't like making fun of actors. We do not like making fun of actors on this show. But I don't want to look at him. I don't want to hear him. I don't want to think. Like, he's so incredibly annoying. And even like Rosie O'Donnell, I don't even really have anything bad. I'm not like really a Rosie O'Donnell hater. I'm not Trump. No. Okay. She's not my total enemy, but she is going really loud and big too. And now she's got like a loudmouth lisp as well for no reason. So you have these two characters that share most of their screen time together. And it's so like cacophonous that it's just like, oh my God, please let me out. I felt like I was like in prison, like just leave me alone. But, it's just for your main character duo to be this over the top and that annoying. It's just grating to a point that I was very perturbed.
Lucille, I'm home. Hey, I'm starved. What's for dinner? Tossed salad.
You come home at 11 o'clock at night, Gunther. Do you expect me to jump and whip you up something to eat? Huh? You get nerve, Gunther Tootie. You really got nerve.
Not nerve, Lucille. Hunger.
Not in this lifetime, Buster. Where have you been?
I had to decorate the rec room for Staudter's party.
Oh, what, a stag function? Is that it, Gunther? What, are you going to have a big cake? How are you going to have girls in little dental floss bikinis jumping out of there, getting down on their knees, doing wretched things to you so-called officers of the law? I pictured the whole thing, Gunther Tootie.
Not even close, Lucille. It's a surprise party.
Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah? Well, too bad Leo's not your wife. Then he'd be surprised every day just how miserable his life is.
Oh, Lucille, come on. I just got home.
I want to come in with a slight defense of David Johansen, but not
that's
so
enough.
much.
That's enough, Bede. Thanks for joining us. F2F Pod. Thanks for
no, not. And I want to ask Bede about this too, because I don't know Bede's like David Johansen thoughts. But I'm not. To be clear here, my defense is not for him in this movie. It's just that you said you don't like David Johansen, and I want to just kind of defend the idea of like why he was probably picked to be in this. Because I really do like David Johansen. But when I say that, I'm not talking about Car 54, Where Are You? Right? I'm talking about David Johansen, like the musical legend. I
Sure.
love the New York Dolls, his proto-punk band. I have a slight affinity for his secondary alter ego, Buster Poindexter, who of course had the hit song Hot, Hot, Hot in the 80s, which, oddly enough, this movie, like, consistently uses like the music of Hot Hot Hot, but never actually plays the song, which I thought was just kind of another baffling choice. Although I do know that he himself hated how big that song got, and he said that it was he talked about how it was like an albatross around his neck at a certain point because he was just like, oh my god, I wish I'd never done that song. But yeah, I love David Johansen as like a rock personality, and then I do think he's like an interesting screen presence, and I think the proof of that is he was like a scene stealer in his brief role as the ghost of Christmas Past in 1988. Right, he like that's like a great sequence. He's really funny in that.
In Scrooge,
and that's
is what you're saying, right? Yeah,
Scrooge. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
In Scrooge in 1988, and that's obviously like what led to this, right? It's clear that like people enjoyed that scene, and he was already kind of known. Like Buster Poindexter was like a big deal at that time. He was already known for like New York Dolls, and then a couple solo albums afterwards. He was a fun TV personality. He would be on MTV a lot. He would do the talk show circuit. People like David Johansen. And after Scrooge, there's probably like this thought of like, okay, well, he could steal a scene. Can he lead a movie? And I think we got our answer. Well, no. Like David Johansen is great as an on-screen presence, probably in small roles, right? If you like strategically use him, he went on to do other great, like I don't know about great, but he went on to do other interesting acting work in like smaller roles here and there. You know, like when he popped up on Oz on HBO. And some other TV stuff. This movie definitely shows a lead, maybe not. That's asking a lot for us to put up with David Johansen, and not just David Johansen, but also David Johansen that's taking his like normal kind of personality and his like kind of, you know, his like naturally aggressive voice and everything, and then cranking it up to 11 to try and match the energy of the actor who played Tootie in the sitcom. It's just kind of a recipe for disaster here. Bede, what do you like? Are you a David Johansen guy in any sense? Do you like know his music, or do you like him as an on-screen presence? And what do you think of him here?
Well, that's the thing. David Johansen, I was always fully aware of. I've never really heard much of his music career. Mm-hmm. I think my first exposure to him was basically when he was Buster Poindexter. That was my first exposure to him. So especially like his Christmas song, Is That You, Santa Claus? That I was fully aware of as a kid. And I just kept thinking like, oh, who is Buster Poindexter? But then, you know, as you get older, you know that he is an alter ego of this other legendary singer. But in terms of... But I guess I was more fully aware of David Johansen more for his acting career. Like, he would just pop up in a lot of other films and TV shows. I do remember him being the villain in the Hulk Hogan film Mr. Nanny, and I'm just sitting here thinking, is this more embarrassing being Mr. Nanny or this film? Because he is just wacky in Mr. Nanny, like even more so than in Car 54. So I guess that's for me like how I was aware of David Johansen. I knew he was a legendary musician and singer, but in terms of my awareness to him, it's definitely more of his acting persona and also his Buster Poindexter persona, which I feel terrible about, but again, these are the things that as a young one growing up, these are the only things that I was fully aware of.
Yeah. And we should I just quickly say, like, I just want to give him his props. We did unfortunately lose him just like last year. He passed away in 2025 after he was battling like stage 4 cancer and a brain tumor for a few years there, and we lost him. And and near the end there, I think when year did this happen? In 2023, Martin Scorsese did make a documentary all about him. So people should check that out if they want to know a little bit more about David Johansen. Because I guess what I'm trying to say is don't allow Car 54, Where Are You? to be the only thing you know about David Johansen. Guy's got a pretty incredible life, amazing musical career. He was a great performer. We would have to call this a misstep probably in his career, I think. And it's telling that he never leads another movie after this.
Well, I'm glad Bede mentioned Mr. Nanny, because like I have vague memories of that movie, but it doesn't surprise me that he would be even wackier in that one, because it's, you know, it's ostensibly a kid's movie, you know? Mm-hmm. Here, to go that wacky and that wild and that obnoxious, it just I think for an adult audience is just a big turnoff. Would you say?
You didn't like when he told Rosie O'Donnell, "You're giving me the horn." You didn't like when he said that, and then
No.
Oh.
Yeah, I did not need, my ears did not need to hear that during the course of this film.
I guess the only thing I can say in like, you know, slight defense of him, not even him, but like his character in the movie is at least Tootie is kind of like a consistent character throughout the movie. I'm with you, Chris, in that if I went in this with like any excitement, I was like, you know, revisiting it and having not remembered anything about it, I was coming into it now being like, well, when I first saw this, I didn't really know John C. McGinley, right? Like, you know, like,
Yeah.
I hadn't seen Platoon at 13. I hadn't seen Talk Radio yet. Those are things I probably came to later. Yeah. He was definitely, up until this point, just a heavy, like, hey, it's that guy actor. He would pop up in a lot of stuff. You'd be like, oh, yeah, that guy, you know? But we don't get to Scrubs until the early 2000s when now we know, oh, it's Dr. Cox, you know? So like, going back to this, I was like, well, I like John C. McGinley, right? He's funny. He's really funny in Office Space. He's amazing in Scrubs. Maybe he's better in this than I remember. And like, maybe he could have been, except his character is like so inconsistent in this. And this is going back to what you were saying, Chris, about the inconsistency of the movie, is that sometimes they play him as this like bright-eyed, optimistic, kind of naive fool. And then sometimes he's played as this like dirty, hairy, hard-ass parody. Like, and it's just like the movie bounces him back and forth with like no rhyme or reason. Like when he kind of like his personality suddenly changes on a dime, like about 30 minutes into the movie. With like no kind of character justification for it. So I felt bad for John C. McGinley in that he felt like adrift in this because he didn't know which tone to be playing in any moment. You could
you just made it binary. There's also a third one. They make him like adolescent. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, he's the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, no-nonsense cop, but then he is, brash and is shooting people in the street. And then he's like a baby man that lives with his mother and is a virgin. And it's like, he doesn't know how to talk to women. And it's just like, well, what's going on here? Like, you have to pick a lane with a character like that. Especially if you want the dichotomy between Tootie and Muldoon. So, yeah, I'm going to keep saying incoherent. But yeah, I think that was a bummer because, yeah, I saw him in the credits. I saw him in the research. And I was like, okay, well, at least I got him. He's going to come through for me. And unfortunately, the script and potentially the re-edits just aren't doing him any favors. Same goes for Jeremy Piven, too. Like, Jeremy Piven's in this movie, and he's just a fucking, like, speak of wacko.
When I said there's an actor in this who's giving too much, I was not talking about David Johansen. I was talking about Jeremy Piven. I don't 100%. Know what Jeremy Piven is doing in this movie, but he, to me, like, David Johansen, I get why you found him aggravating in this, Chris, but I also went into it kind of knowing the David Johansen thing, so I think I was, like, a little bit more steeled for it.
Sure.
And I was like, okay, like, he's not great in this, but it's, like, it's not bothering me because I get it. That's David Johansen doing one of his bits, right? Jeremy Piven, not an actor I love or anything, right?
Same.
But he can be okay, obviously, in things. I found him unbearable in this movie. Like, every second he was on screen, whatever the hell he was doing with his performance, that was like my breaking point. I was like, he's going so over the top and trying so hard to be funny.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of like naturally funny people in this that are kind of, you know, obviously stuck in a movie that's not taking the best advantage of that, but then he's a guy who feels like a not naturally funny guy who's trying very, very hard to be as funny as everyone else, and it's
Are you Hortz?
Yes, lunch. No, thanks. I don't eat those hot dogs. You can move on to the next cell.
These are not hot dogs. In appreciation of your endeavors, we have been permitted to alter the normal fare toward your dietary enjoyment.
Get out of here.
Yeah. We have brought you a fine vintage Chablis wine beverage from our cellar.
Stop that! Look at you!
And fillet of beef Gaspar with watercress soup.
Look at those niblets!
And an adornment.
Thank you. Listen, boys, little faux pas. You never serve a red meat with a white wine, okay? You don't want you. It's like, it's a horrendous mistake. Get out of here, all right? Thank you, guys. Get out of here. Hey! Come here. You think I'd let you get away with that, huh?
Got a problem?
Yeah, I got a problem. Mr. Jackson, he's got a date with you boys. Take him. Have some fun.
Oh God, he's so annoying.
And that's not just in movies. I don't like making fun of actors, like I keep saying.
We can make fun of Jeremy Piven. It's fine. I do like making fun of Jeremy Piven.
Jeremy Piven is a bit of a hack.
Yeah.
And he tried this like stand-up thing, like a few years ago, and I don't know if he's still doing it, but he came to my hometown and toured a bit. And I know my parents had went because we're kind of regulars at a comedy club here, and they basically go see everyone. But they saw Jeremy Piven, and it was borderline boo out of the room situation. The guy thinks he's hilarious because he was on Entourage for all those years. First of all, we've talked about that in this podcast too. A show that we weren't totally into.
No. Might have to do the movie someday. But.
Well, in the year 2038, we'll get to it. But Jeremy Piven is, yes, he is an unfunny person that thinks he's funny. And you can't teach funny. You either got it or you don't. And Jeremy Piven tries to be a super serious actor, or he tries to be an outrageous buffoon. And in this movie, he is so ridiculous and big and loud and obnoxious. And yeah, like you said, in every scene as well. At least Gunther Tootie, like I get.
Yeah.
Okay? Like with big old quotation marks. I get Tootie. But Herbert Hortz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's the witness, the mob trial witness they're protecting, ostensibly, because this movie, to say this movie has a plot would be really generous, but the plot as it is that he is a mob witness who they have to protect before he turns evidence against the mob boss, played by Daniel Baldwin. But that is just an excuse for Jeremy Piven to spend the majority of the movie just locked in a cell and interact with other prisoners in increasingly unfunny ways.
Bede, I gotta ask you, in Australia, did the men wearing an earring gay joke reach you guys?
Welcome aboard.
Well, it's good to be here. Well, let's start in here, shall we?
Okay.
Okay, I need a futon instead of that cot.
Right.
I inherited some terrible lower back problems. Also, if we could get one window right there for a little Eastern exposure. Ow!
Just like Wally Perkins on Wild Kingdom.
What'd you do that for?
Mr. Hort, you now emit an electronic signal for your own protection. Captain, until we get him to the grand jury, we'll be able to monitor him anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere.
No, you're not. Gentlemen.
Does this mean I'm gay? Hold it. Is it the left or the right? I forgot.
Not that I'm aware of, at least at the time. But in terms of my thoughts on Jeremy Piven in this film, I was very curious, how old he was when he... Because we know it was made in 1990. How old was he when he made this film? And I sort of looked up, when I was doing my research, that he was close to his mid-20s at the time, but yet he looked like he was in his 40s, and it just blew my mind.
Wow. That's wild.
That's dude, you just got old so quick.
I think a lot of Jeremy Piven's real life personality and the obnoxious aggressive part of it is probably comes from the insecurity where his hairline did that to him at 18, and he just you can feel that and he's Jeremy Piven just has such a weird career, right? Because he was this guy who we all knew. He would occasionally lead movies like PCU, but and he has he could play a great scumbag. He's pretty entertaining as a scumbag in Judgment Night, a movie I quite like. But for the most part, he was really riding the fact of being John Cusack's best friend for a long time.
Right.
And then Ari Gold hits on Entourage, and it's you know what, I don't love that show, but that's where I'll give Jeremy Piven his props. That is a good performance, right, for what that character is and what
he's
it
kind
needs
of
to be.
He's kind of the reason why that show became what it was.
Time.
Oh,
big
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
It's not remembered now, but I was working in bookstores at the time, and people forget there was an Ari Gold book written by Ari Gold. He was that character was such a big deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
People loved that character, and it felt like he was really being oh my God, after Entourage is done, whenever it's finally done, we are going to be living in the era of Jeremy Piven. And it's Entourage is the only time for him, right? It's that. And then obviously I know later there's some other stuff with sexual assault allegations and stuff, obviously. So it's obviously he seems like a piece of shit, but he never takes off the way it seemed like he would after Entourage. Probably, which is a good thing, I think, for the world. But he's one of those guys now where when he pops up in stuff randomly, you're always why I didn't expect to see Jeremy Piven in this, and it's just shocking, when he shows up. Sucksness, that's for sure.
Hey, B, did you watch Dr. Detroit? I know we did an episode on this podcast about that movie a little bit ago, but did you ever see the movie Dr. Detroit starring Dan Aykroyd in your life?
I'm pretty sure I did. And again, Trev knows this about me because I watch everything. And like, you go to my letterboxd right now, and it's like in the 12,000s how many movies I've logged in on that website. Because I watch everything. Like,
Right.
I don't discriminate against any movie whatsoever. I'll watch like anything from Ingmar Bergman down to anything from The Asylum. Like, I will watch anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in terms of Dr. Detroit, I might have seen it.
You'd know if you saw it.
Yeah, I have a strange feeling. I probably get it confused with, like, Doc Hollywood as well. Like, it's one of those two movies I probably slightly get confused by, even though, yes, one stars Michael J. Fox and the other stars Dan Aykroyd. But to answer your question, I'm going to say no, I haven't seen Dr. Detroit, but at the same time, it's like a question mark at the same time.
Well, there's a means to my madness here. So, Dr. Detroit is a Dan Aykroyd starring vehicle from the 80s and hitting right around the time that he hits with Ghostbusters and Trading Places, and we did a whole episode about it. So listeners, if you're interested in hearing about Dr. Detroit, go listen to that. But it is a wild movie where he comes to the rescue of some hookers, and he has to pretend to be Dr. Detroit because he first of all he's like a mild-mannered professor. And he takes on this persona of Dr. Detroit, who's like a tough guy pimp, and he has to show all the other pimps in the city that he's like, don't mess with my girls. So he creates this persona that he wears this big frizzy wig, these crazy sunglasses, this wild colored suit. He puts on a funny voice, and he wears a metal claw. Okay, so I've set the stage. There's also a co-star in the movie, one Fran Drescher. Okay. So I'm watching this movie a couple days ago, and we just did Dr. Detroit. And then all of a sudden, Gunther Tootie tells me and the audience that he has to go undercover as Detroit Dan. And immediately I lost my shit.
Yeah.
Not only is he so similar because he has a crazy voice that he even kind of puts on even more so to play this character, he also wears a crazy colored suit, and he's a tough guy persona. There's also hookers involved in this movie. And then he has to gain respect of another mob boss, which is very similar to Dr. Detroit. And then Fran Drescher's in this, and spoiler alert, in the credits, Fran Drescher marries one of our main characters, and at the very end of Dr. Detroit, spoilers, Fran Drescher marries Dr. Detroit. And then I say Dr. Dan because of Dan Aykroyd, and oh no, I've gone cross-eyed.
What a double feature that would be, right? You know, they say they used to steal from the greats, and obviously Car 54, Where Are You? Was like, well, you know, if we're gonna make this work, we'll take from Dr. Detroit and then port it over to Detroit Dan. Yeah, I know, my jaw dropped when all that stuff started happening in this movie. I was like, I cannot believe we're living this again. Like...
and I'll say this, Dr. Detroit, I also didn't like, but it was like fascinating to talk about.
Yeah.
This Car 54 is not quite fascinating. It's more misfire than interesting time capsule of hubris.
It's interesting. Like this poses like a challenging question for me of like, if I had to rewatch one of them, which would I rather? And I almost think I would do Car 54, Where Are You? Because like, I think I kind of get what you're saying, Chris, where you say like Dr. Detroit might be more interesting to talk about. I do think this is a more like kind of train wreck, interesting movie to watch, like in a weird way, because it is so just like, Would you rather shoot yourself under the chin or at the temple? That's what you're asking. Left testicle versus right testicle, right? Like, what do you want here? But because there is a train wreck, like, what the hell is this movie element to this that makes it somewhat oddly fascinating at times. And like I said, I think there is a lot of the cast is trying here. I think there are talented people in this. There are some performances I liked. I liked Nipsey Russell as like their captain. I think it is funny. This movie like breaks the continuity and world of Car 54. Where are you? I'm sure they should have thought more about this on the screenwriting level, of course. But Nipsey Russell and Al Lewis are both in this, playing the characters they played in the sitcom. So like Nipsey Russell was just like a young cop on the show, and now he's like graduated to captain. And then Al Lewis was also like he was you got a cop on the show, and now we see him in his final days as he's getting ready for retirement as Tootie's first partner. But like, hey, how does that make sense? How could they be the same characters, but now they're working with two new guys named Tootie and Muldoon? That doesn't. Hey, come on, guys. Now I'm going cross-eyed. Right? Like it doesn't. Although there's a nice meta joke there where Al Lewis is in the hospital after he gets injured, and he's watching the Munsters on TV. So it's like, they're being meta about it. Mm-hmm. But I did think Nipsey Russell was like genuinely kind of funny in this. I thought Fran Drescher was goodness doing her Fran Drescher thing. I wasn't as like annoyed by Rosie O'Donnell in this because she is playing like a stereotypical kind of character, and I thought she was doing it well. So it's like,
well hold on. I don't think I was saying that. I was mostly, I guess I was just saying to have them together in so many scenes. It was just like too much. It was like, enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what I mean about how I just wish like, I wish man that we could see like Wishman's like, I guess maybe I want to see his original cut. I don't know. Maybe
Wishman.
not.
His name is Fishman. I know.
Oh, Fishman.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, I wish, man, that we could see Fishman's original cut. Because like Tapeheads is a good movie. He's obviously a talented guy. Did he actually have some kind of legit directorial vision here? It's hard to look at the evidence on screen and think there's a better cut of this, Even the idea of all the musical numbers being cut out, it's not like that opening musical number is that amazing, So I don't know. But if you told me that like somehow they like unearthed Bill Fishman's original cut and it's like out there, would I sit down and watch this again? Yeah, I'm an idiot. I probably would. I don't know.
Yeah. You did for this podcast, so it makes sense.
Yeah, there is a this is probably the Bill Fishman connection too, right? When you bring in like an MTV music video guy who's got all these connections in that world, there are like a lot of cool cameos in this too, and we do get some like cool people from the music scene. Like obviously he cast David Johansen. He's like, well, I'm gonna get the New York Dolls guy to be the lead, and then Mojo Nixon, another great like like a psychobilly rockabilly legend, shows up really briefly as a street preacher. And then there's like this like 5-minute period where suddenly the movie is like trying to trick me into liking it, because in like 5 minutes they just like start having all these cool people pop up. Penn and Teller show up doing a pretty good like Penn and Teller bit, where they're like gun salesmen, selling guns directly to cops in a bar.
I'll say I like that. I like them. But mind you, how can you not like Penn and Teller?
That's what I mean. Like Penn and Teller show up, and then right after that, we go to like CBGB and watch the Ramones perform, and I'm like, oh, all right, okay, now I got the Ramones, all right, and I'm coming alive a little bit. And then Muldoon goes on like a carriage like ride date with Fran Drescher, and Tone Loc is the guy running the carriage, and I'm like, all right. So it's like the movie is like trying so hard to trick you into liking it, but then it's like you kind of keep coming shot back down to earth and being reminded you're still watching Car 54, are you? And you're still stuck with Muldoon and Tootie as the main characters.
Yeah. Penn and Teller, they love a cameo. I'll tell you that. They love cameos. But sorry to step on you. Bede, you go. I just wanted to. It feels like Penn and Teller like show up everywhere during this time.
I mean, they did a lot in this period of time, because I think they also popped up in My Chauffeur as well.
Yeah.
And a couple other projects as well. So they were like popping up everywhere during that late 80s, early 90s period of films. I do want to talk about at least some of the gags that did work for me.
Yeah, me too.
Throughout this film, that at least gave me a chuckle. And this was the gag I was alluding to earlier that kind of reminded me a lot of the Zucker Brothers Naked Gun type of gags, is when David Johansen his character has dressed up as Detroit Dad, and he goes to the restaurant to meet with Don Motti. And I agree with you, Chris. Every time Daniel Baldwin was on screen, I just felt like he was channeling his brother Alec.
Oh, big time.
In these scenes. But then he meets this beautiful woman who is like, you follow me. And every time, and I had to actually rewind this back because I wasn't sure, like, did I just see that? And throughout the entire sequence, as they're going from different areas, as Tootie is following this woman, like, she, in every single scene, she's wearing a completely different outfit.
Mm-hmm.
And there's obvious sparks going on between them. And then once they get to the train station, and he's about to board, they're like looking at each other's eyes very longingly and lovingly. And then Tootie's like, oh, you got a booger in your nose. That moment made me laugh so hard because that felt like an actual real gag in this movie.
That part is, so I have my list of like, I made a list on my paper here in front of me. It says actual funny bits. And that part is on there, but not for the setup is fine. The setup is good where she's wearing the different dresses and they keep kind of descending further and further underground to like get to this meeting place. Like she takes him through all these different rooms. She's wearing different dresses. Then she puts him in a subway, and then the subway takes him to like Don Matti's, like to his office. The part that actually made me laugh is at the end of that scene when Don Matti says he's about to leave out the same door he came in, and Don Matti goes, oh no, go this way. And he walks at a door and walks right into the same restaurant he originally started in. And he just goes like, oh, that way is a lot quicker. Like that made, like, I was like, okay, that's a good, like kind of Zucker Brothers joke. Like, but that was very funny. Here's what I have for the actual funny bits, right? So that was one for me. The other one was when John C. McGinley gets the department new chairs, and they're like ergonomic chairs and nobody can figure out how to sit in them. Just a good visual comedy for like 10 seconds, you know? I like the Nipsey Russell bit when the FBI comes to his office and they say, is this office secure? And Nipsey Russell's like, well, I get a nice feeling when I come into it. And then they're like, well, no, and they're like, we're talking about bugs. And he's like, well, now there you got me. I do have an exterminator coming every week, but he's not doing a very good job. Again, just dumb humor, but it made me laugh. And then the last thing on my list, as I said, I only got 4. I didn't get to 5. Sorry, Sam. The fourth joke that made me laugh was when Tootie and his wife have Muldoon and his mother come over for dinner. And when Muldoon comes to the door, they do a whole thing where whenever someone comes to the door, they're like looking at each other through a fisheye lens, but then you see that there is no fisheye lens like that they're looking through. It just does that for some reason, and that's the kind of like that makes no sense. But that's what I mean. Like I like that kind of humor, and I wish the movie had more of that.
Those were all good. I agree. I'd also add I liked the slight AI Edna acronymed supercomputer that gets increasingly like talks like kind of horny.
The prisoner has escaped. Alert! The prisoner is safe. The prisoner is safe. The prisoner is safe. Thank you, Dave.
Just reminding me of something out of like maybe Spaceballs or like a Mel Brooks film. So I like that. Also, when they're gonna play like I can't remember now. The movie's escaping me. But when they're like Tootie pins that game, like pin the tail maybe on like the electrical outlet.
Yep.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. Also just like the rowdiness of a cop party, which was funny, of them just kind of like shooting things and using other guns, and that stuff was pretty good. So yeah, there was like a few pretty good as Bede's saying, like Naked Gun-esque gags. But, as I said before, it just doesn't go far enough. Like, if you're going to do a Naked Gun movie, do a fucking Naked Gun movie. Like, go for it.
That's what I mean. Like, that moment Bede is talking about where she's, like, taking him through those different rooms and her dress keeps changing, that part is such a reality break that it really feels out of place here. Mm-hmm. Like you just said, if you're going to do that, like fill the movie with that. Then we'd probably like the movie more, right? Like let the movie go entirely over the top. Don't do it to where that happens sometimes and you're just like, well, wait, why is like it breaking reality at this point when it wasn't doing that before? Like that's what I mean about this movie just being a weird, incoherent head scratcher of a film.
Now, Bede, we like to ask her the question at the end of like kind of discussing the film, but this obviously didn't get sequels for obvious reasons. It huge bomb, but then also, well, the company went bankrupt, so got lost in the shuffle. However, in this incarnation, do you think it should have got sequels, or would you have liked to see sequels? I give the floor to you.
No. I guess to put it bluntly. I mean, if they did have a sequel, would I have watched it? Yes, because I'm the weirdo who watches everything. But in terms of, like, would I be excited for a sequel after watching this? Not really, no.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, but I think you guys have pretty much said it quite well earlier in the episode. Like, and this popped into my brain as well as I was watching it. I just didn't know who this film was made for. Was it for fans who enjoyed the show, or was it for younger viewers? Because, like you both said, the tone of it is just so jarring, where it kind of goes for the more edgy, kind of risque humor, which kind of really offsets the other, I guess, quote unquote, more family film style of humor as well. So it's just a really weird film. And I mean, at the end of the day, I think every film is for everybody. Like, obviously, there are most likely fans out there who do love this movie, hail it as a cult classic, and so on and so forth.
There are. I
but
found
yeah,
them
like,
yeah.
But I guess for me personally, like, it definitely is a film that I would say, yeah, I don't think it deserves a sequel. But if they did make a sequel, I most likely would watch it.
The very rarely coveted 0% on Rotten Tomatoes would not deter anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, like, I'll answer the question next,
Sure.
because obviously I'm right there with them. You asked, does this deserve sequels? I don't even know that this movie deserves to exist in its current form. So no, I don't think it deserves sequels either. I'm going to say one of the meanest things I could say about it. A few years ago, for just like some wild reason, I got this like strange hair up my ass from like, you know what, this is like probably a bad idea. But over the course of either 1 or 2 days, I can't remember. I think maybe it was 2, maybe 1 if I was being really insane. I watched the entire Police Academy series, all 7 Police Academy movies. And that went about as well. I
totally forgot you did that. That was wild.
That went about as well as you would expect. And I would imagine that the success of that series, people forget that series was huge for a bit in the 80s. I would imagine that's another reason this movie was made, right? That's probably another reason this IP was appealing to them, like another cop comedy. This movie made me appreciate the Police Academy movies, which is like one of the meanest things I could say about a comedy. Where I look at this and go, you know, Police Academy kind of had something going for it, didn't it? Or at least it kind of knew what it was, you know. There was sort of like this movie just, like we just said, this movie just doesn't know what it is, which is ironic because it's maybe the only movie I've ever seen that decides to constantly remind you what movie you're watching by consistently popping in the Car 54, where are you musical sting throughout the movie. So thank you, in case I forgot what I was watching.
Car 54, where are you?
But yeah, I'm glad I'm glad this didn't get any sequels, and I'm glad that all the talented people in this movie did survive this. The fact that it just came and went was good for everybody, because I did feel embarrassed for everybody watching this.
No for me. That's a no for me, dog. You know, like, I just very just irritating, and would I watch a sequel? No, I couldn't do it. Especially if we had these same characters back. I don't know. There's something about David Johansen's performance that was just very, very just way too much, and you know, some things should just be forgotten about, and maybe this is one of them. But yes, I do think that was kind of a very sweet sentiment that Bede said about how every movie's for somebody. That's actually quite wise, I would say. So I like that. I'm gonna keep that. I'm gonna steal it.
Do we want to meet that person who this movie is for them? No.
No. We have to. Should they be studied?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Trev, since, you know, we, on our show that we do together at the end of every episode, we always do what we call the New York test, which is for listeners of this show who have never listened to Bede Trev versus the Big Apple. First of all, how dare you not listen to that show? But we do a test at the end of each episode, kind of similar to the Bechdel test, where we ask 4 questions about the film we just watched to see how New York of a film it actually is. And so that was playing in my mind as I was watching this film, Trev, and I hate to say it, this film ticked all 4 boxes.
I know,
so
it did,
this is
yeah.
would be
this movie actually was like kind of like hitting the marks for like what we look for in a New York movie. And I will say, like, again, like the enjoyment I got from this movie was kind of like on two levels, right? There was like the train wreck element of it, and then there was just I still do just like movies. And as you know, as Chris said, you can tell a lot of movies actually filmed in Ontario, other than like establishing shots. But it's still trying to like do the New York thing, and like Catherine Hardwicke's production design is doing a good job replicating like that grimy, crime-ridden New York. I like that the movie starts with like them in like a just a chaotic like riot in the streets of New York and everything. So I was like slightly still enjoying it on that level, even though my soul was dying as I was watching it because of that. So, but yeah, we do have songs like about New York here. We do visit New York landmarks like Coney Island. We have New York character actors, and there's plenty of things in this movie that make you think about New York. So, yep, checks all the boxes.
Wow.
That being said, I will say there are better New York movies than Car 54. Why Are You? Hot statement.
Oh yeah, wow. I have requested. I don't know if this. We might cut this, but Bede, I don't know if Trev has shared with you my 2 requests to be to guest on your podcast. If you'd have me, if you'd be so gracious. But I had 2 requests. One is The Warriors. I'd like to join for that one, purely because people might be shocked, but I've never actually seen it, and I've been kind of waiting for the perfect moment to watch it. So there's that. And then also, one of my favorite movies of all time, Goodfellas. It has a cultural meaning to me, and then just... it's fucking one of the best movies of all time. So I would like to watch that.
I mean, we will definitely consider those 2 movies, but how would you feel about doing the more B-grade versions of those 2 movies?
I might just listen to your episodes.
You mean Goodfellas, directed by the director of the David Johansen documentary?
Nice.
Yes.
I like that. Yeah, great.
Can I just quickly say, as we're wrapping this up, because Chris, you love your Matrix moments. Bede and I...
Does Bede know about Matrix moments, by the way? Have you spread the word of the cult?
So if Bede is a regular listener, he's probably heard us talk about it, but Chris and I like to talk about our Matrix moments, and that a lot of things, this show is like populated, and kind of our life, Chris and I's life as friends, is like populated by these really strange coincidences where it seems like some of these are really unfortunate. A lot of times we'll cover some movie on Failure to Franchise, and then like the next week or right when our episode drops, the person who starred in that movie passed away. That like just famously happened with us when we covered Invasion USA, and then we released the episode on the day that Chuck Norris passed away.
No, we released it on his birthday,
and then he passed away like a couple days later. Yeah, but that's happened to us a bunch. But then also just like strange things where we'll cover a movie starring an actor you haven't thought about in years, and then one of us will like watch a movie the next day, and that actor pops up in it or something. And just so to that end, this movie came up in our online randomizer for this, and I said, "Oh, we should get Bede because it's a New York movie." And that was planned quite some time ago. And then Bede, you and I, for our show, Bede and Trev versus the Big Apple, we just did Abel Ferrara's Fear City. And I sat down to watch Fear City for that episode, which we've already recorded. And the opening theme song for that movie is a song called New York Doll, written and performed by David Johansen. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So it's like David Johansen did the theme song for our most recent movie on that podcast, and now he stars in this one. So
wild.
Just again.
And not only that, it begins with a David Johansen song that is also about a part of New York, which is Manhattan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wild. Wild. And, he's already dead, so we didn't kill him. That's okay, right?
We're safe on this one, yeah. Marked safe from killing David Johansen, Failure to Franchise, yeah.
You watch out, Jeremy Piven.
well, whatever.
Okay, well, Bede, thanks. Like, we don't have many guests on this podcast. We've been doing it for almost 6 years now. We've had a handful. So just thanks for your time. And I know this is early. This is the morning for you right now. We're recording in the evening in Canada and the States, but you're broadcasting from Australia. So this is the morning. So I appreciate you waking up with us here, I guess, with Car 54 discussion, in-depth discussion of Car 54. So thanks for being here.
Well, it was a great pleasure for me, and I feel very blessed to be one of the only few guests on this show. And yeah, I had a really great time talking about this movie. It may not have been the best movie, but it was a fun discussion. So I appreciate coming on the show.
Great. Awesome. Do you have anything to, other than your guys' podcast, as remember, I'm the cuck in the chair, but other than your guys' your podcast, can people follow you anywhere on socials, or do you got anything else you want to plug? The floor is yours.
Oh, what to plug? Let's see. Well, I am on Twitter and Blue Sky. You can follow me there under Bede Jermyn. Also, you can find me on Letterboxd under Bede Jermyn. And the thing is, though, and Trev, you know this about me too, I am a prolific podcaster. Besides Bede versus the Living Dead and the show Trev and I host together, I host 7 other shows as well. Because I'm a bit of a machine. So you can find some of those shows that I co-host with a friend of mine, Super Marcy. She and I host a few shows together, and you can find those over on supermarcy.com and on the Super Network on all podcast streamers everywhere. Different shows of different varieties of topics. We cover everything from exploitation to Stephen King film and TV adaptations, horror anthologies, and also we do a podcast on where we do audio commentaries on films that are playing on Tubi, and also a regular show in there as well. And then, of course, Bede versus the Living Dead. It has its own little spin-offs as well, including Bede Trev versus the Big Apple, but there's also Bede and Steve versus Camp Crystal Lake, and Bede and Steve versus Leatherface, which I do with my friend Stephen T. Bolts. And also another show which is currently on hiatus at the moment, but hopefully it'll be back very soon, which is Bede and Sam versus the Video Nasties, and also there may be other things in the works as well that I can't divulge.
Wow. Oh, wild man. I knew that about Australians, but wow. Well, we'll make sure to put, even this is a note for me, I'll make sure to put your Letterboxd and one of your, probably your Blue Sky or Twitter or whatever you handle, we'll put it in the episode description of the podcast app that you're listening to right now.
Yes.
Other than that, next episode on Failure to Franchise, Summer Surprise 2026, where an online randomizer told us what to do. Next episode, The Green Hornet from 2011. So...
That's right. At a time where everyone's just loving superhero movies, we're going to shout out the Green Hornet. Yep.
And we're going to talk about another TV show with a duo.
Yeah. And law enforcement related. So there you go.
Wild. Yeah. Follow along at F2F Pod. That's at F2, the number 2F Pod on all the socials. Like us there, like us everywhere. Rate, review, whatever you do. A star rating would be awesome. And then just join the tribe and hit that subscribe. And come along. Summer Surprise. This was a lot of fun. And we're going to keep it going. And Green Hornet awaits.
And just one last time for the road. I'm auditioning for Tootie in the reboot.
Oh, no, I mean, it could have been worse. I'll say that. Like I said, I did give it 2 stars on the box. So, I mean... I even saw an even worse thing compared to Car 54 Where On You, and that's the Neil Blomkamp AI slop short film he made.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh, is that that was just released, right? I think I just heard.
Yeah, it was just released, and it's basically just Universal Soldier. That's essentially. Oh, wow. Even if it wasn't made entirely with AI, it's just basically almost a complete rip-off of Universal Soldier, just with a more zombie action.
What's with him and Darren Aronofsky doing this? I don't like Aronofsky doing that. Really kind of pissed me off with his like historical show. Wasn't it a show?
Yeah, it was like an American Revolution show or something. Like,
my God.
It's all these filmmakers who just want to experiment with technology. It's either people who like that or the older filmmakers as well.
Like experiment, on your own. You know what I mean? Like,
or like experiment by like, let me try to like make this like, car going by in the background AI and see if it works. Don't make like a whole fucking movie of it.
That's so strange.
I mean, I've played around with it myself because I'm like, I'm kind of curious. What would I do if I did a scene like this and I had looked and I just would laugh at how terrible it turned out.
Yeah.
Bede's like, I already am surrounded by deserts in Australia, so fuck it if I'm just destroying the water everywhere else.
Exactly. Well, I mean, pretty much 80% of Australia is desert.